that in the modern conception of competitiveness, progress is collaborative. You know, in the old top-down view of competitiveness and government policy, government sort of drives competitiveness, government sets the rules, firms are kind of passive actors. In a world of innovation, in a world of productivity, in a world that firms have many different choices about how to create unique strategies and how to develop unique products and processes, all of a sudden, any economic progress is collaborative. And so we know from studying many countries and successes in competitiveness and economic development that successful progress is going to require us to not see the various actors in society or stakeholders in society as competing with each other, but finding areas where they can be aligned to actually drive more rapid progress. Again, all of these ideas start to give us a broader basis on which to think that the role of environmental regulation can be very different than it was historically believed. So what's happened since? Well, I would say that there's been extraordinary uptake in business about the potential of environmental improvement to actually lower cost and improve processes and actually ultimately drive, in many cases, competitiveness. Very many companies today have embraced this more rapidly than I could have expected. I think the original impetus for this uptake was really social responsibility. It was sort of CSR. Initially, companies sort of felt, well, we need to do this to be good citizens, but I think increasingly, as every year that goes by, the uptake in business is much more around the notion that this actually is good for the company, this is good for business, this will make us more competitive, this will improve our efficiency, this will improve our resource utilization, and this will improve our products and their acceptance by the customer. So I think the biggest success has been probably in the business community. There certainly has been some uptake of these ideas in the regulatory world outside the United States quite broadly. In the U.S., I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag. In some areas, we see this thinking about regulation really deployed, in other areas not. And so I would call this kind of a mixed picture. In the NGO community, again, there's a mixed picture, although I think now more and more of leading NGOs are starting to want to work collaboratively with business and understand that by working collaboratively with business around this notion of win-win is the best way to actually make progress, rather than the old-style NGO model of embarrass, litigate, shame the private sector. So I think there's progress there, but again, not complete yet. And I think probably in many ways the most important thing that's happened is the shift in societal values. I think the values in society have moved dramatically pro-environment, particularly among the younger people. And that has really fueled, I think, the greater focus and shifting thinking about the environment in the business community in particular, because I think they perceived that the reward and the societal values attached to that kind of activity have been enhanced. And I think this is one of the great opportunities we have right now, that we have a younger cohort in our society that believes deeply in the environment. They believe deeply in dealing with some of the most important problems we're facing in society, the problems of poverty and economic opportunity and nutrition. And I certainly know my daughters, who are college age, just think very differently about this set of issues. And I'm sure your children and grandchildren do as well. And I think that's a tremendous asset that we have, because if that's true, they are going to be the employees of the companies in the future, and they are going to be the consumers that are buying products and valuing different product in terms of their attributes. And they are also hopefully going to be enlightened NGO and government leaders, and we hopefully can capitalize on that new energy and that new caring about some of these issues. That said, I want to be absolutely clear. There's still a lot of people, and I will say that there's still a lot of people in this town that still believe that the relationship relationship between environmental improvement and the corporation is adversarial. Inherently so. And there's lots of political obstacles still to really fully embracing the thinking underlying the Porter hypothesis. All kinds of political obstacles which have to do with ideological positions that have been difficult to shed. I think this curious flip of the Republican Party, I'm a Massachusetts Republican, I just want to be honest about that. In Massachusetts, Republicans are a very rare species. We are quite liberal on all social issues and quite conservative on economic issues. But the Republican Party once was the champion of pro-innovation, market-oriented regulatory approaches. Now we have this curious flip where the Republican Party, or at least some parts of the party, have become really, in many ways, an obstacle. So I think we have some real challenges. And this issue is by no means an issue that we can declare any sort of, we can't move on yet. We're still in the middle of it. And in the environmental arena in particular, it's a very important question to be talking about today. So again, that's why I think this session is so timely. And that's why I'm so pleased that all of you are here. What are the implications of the Porter hypothesis for policy? Well, let me just expand a little bit on some of the points that Mark made. Basically, the one-liner is, look for the win-win solution. That's the one-liner. This says that there could be and can be often a win-win solution where we can improve environmental performance at the same time making the company more productive, more innovative, improving the value of its products, and making it more competitive. We need to do everything we can to widen the circumstances where that can happen. That's kind of the one line. That therefore regulators need to see businesses as not an adversary. They need to see businesses as somebody that hopefully they can understand well enough to engage and interact with those businesses in a way that allows these win-win opportunities. So how would we translate that more specifically into regulatory choices? Well, as already been said, the Porter hypothesis suggests that you set performance standards for environmental improvement, not specify how to achieve those standards. Because if you specify how to achieve those standards, you guarantee that there will be no innovation. And you cut off your nose to spite your face. And we still do that time and time and time again. A corollary to this is we don't subsidize particular technological solutions. We may want to encourage investment, or we may want to have investment tax credits, or we may want to have R&D tax credits that are kind of neutral across technology. That might be a good thing. But we don't want to try to have somebody decide which technology is going to be the best way to innovate to deal with this environmental problem and make things better. That's a real mistake. We're working at cross purposes to our fundamental goals when we do things like that. Number two, we want to utilize phase-in periods. When we are incorporating or promulgating environmental standards, we want phase-in periods that are aligned with the time constant in the industries that we're regulating and the new product cycles. Because if we try to force things at a pace that's not aligned with the investment cycle in the industry, we will force firms to either reject or try to roll back. Or we will actually drive up cost. Whereas if we can get the regulatory timeline enhanced with the business timeline, or enhanced, I should say, aligned with the business timeline, we'll have a much higher opportunity to get that innovation solution rather than the compliance or end-of-pipe type solution. Number three, we need to ensure, as much as we possibly can, a predictable evolution of standards over time. Ideally, we'd like to know what those standards are going to look like over the next 20 years, because many of these are long-term investments in technology and new operating methods and new processes and new product designs. And we want companies to kind of have some predictability about where things are going. Because they're more likely, if they have that predictability, to get it right. They're more likely to make that investment in trying to drive that innovation, rather than either trying to reject the whole